Hey everybody, welcome to the QuiverCast.
You go left, I go right. Man, this wave is out of sight. Going surfing, going surfing, going surfing with friends.
All right, everyone, welcome back to the QuiverCast. Today we have a surfer, skater, snowboarder, artist, musician. He's kind of done everything. Dave Tourje. How are you, Dave?
Carpenter too.
I was going to ask you. Okay, you know what? Let's start right there since you brought it up.
Oh man.
Can you make a living off art?
You can. I can't, but some can.
How many?
Very
Percentage?
few. Very few
Okay.
make a really good living. Okay. My problem is that my appetite for money is too high. You know, I end up having 3 kids. I have a lot of bad habits I got to fund, right? And I also love a lot of things. You know, I truly love construction work. That's a whole discussion. Like, I never wanted to make a living from my art. I didn't want to be beholden to the needs of other people, like gallerists, people that influenced me to make things. You know, I always saw art as it had to be purely free for me. And I found out when I was making money in art, it wasn't purely free for me. It was a little bit shackled, a little bit guided, a little bit, well, you need to keep making this stuff because that's selling, you know. And I didn't like that. I didn't sign up for it. I was naive. In my 20s, I did it, you know what I mean? In early 30s, made a lot of money in art. That's why I know you can make money in art. It just wasn't for me. Ultimately, it's a complicated question, but I think that's a simple answer, you know.
Does it take away from the art if you're chasing the money?
You know, it could. I do know people who retain that integrity, you know, good friends of mine. Some people I've known that have kind of sold off part of their soul, you know what I mean? But mostly my friends in art, they're probably friends because they've retained their integrity on that point and they've somehow managed, but they've had to navigate the problem. I can tell you, there's not one person I know, and I know some famous artists that have not had to navigate that problem. Like I said, for me, I've always been in construction. It's in my blood, like art is in my blood. Okay. So construction has allowed me to be free. Like I had artist friends that would say, you know, what I need is a patron, someone who pays me, you know, like every week, you know, and I give them work and that allows me to just stay in the studio and paint. And I said, I'll build my own patron, which is a construction company. So I have a construction company that I don't have to work at anymore. And it funds all my bad habits. And
Sweet.
So I'm completely free to do anything I want.
Along with art, you do all these other hobbies. Surfing's one of them. Snowboarding, you said skateboarding in the early times.
Yeah.
Vert ramp. Did you know then, or what were you thinking your life was going to be? Did you think it was going to be a surfer, a skater, or did you know you were going to be an artist? I guess, or a construction guy. What did you think life was going to take you in your early young teens?
Wow. All we ever thought about, I could say for me, all I ever thought about was surfing and skateboarding. That's
Okay.
all I thought about. I wasn't a musician until my later teens, so I didn't think about that. I always did art since I was a kid, so that was always in what I did. And my high school had a really good art teacher, and my high school went from 7th grade to 12th grade. So I had this art teacher for the whole time. And I had art teachers before in elementary school. So my chops were very wired. You know, I got a lot of good art education early. That was always going to be part of it because that was kind of like speaking was always going to be part of living. Being an artist was always part of the game plan. Catching the bug of surfing and skateboarding at such an early age, you know, like my dad bought me a Black Knight skateboard, you know, if you know what those are, when I was 7, 8 years old.
Wow.
And that was 1967, 68, right? So I started skateboarding on clay wheels as a young kid. And then when urethane hit when I was 12, like 1972, 73, went to urethane, and man, it was on. And then it was, we had a ditch right down the street. We had elementary schools with the asphalt banks. There were local pools. We started skating in pools, and me and my friends got really good at it. And I remember those days as the only thing I was thinking about was skateboarding mainly, but surfing a close second, I would say. And art was just like eating. It's just like, it's just something I always did. I was big on listening to music at the time. And then finally at age 17, I decided, you know what, I'm going to play this thing. And I got good really fast because I had musician friends.
What was your first surfboard?
Well, my first good surfboard was a little
Okay.
out in Agoura. And my dad bought it for me on the way to UC Santa Barbara, but that was later in life. There was a guy in Eagle Rock named Warren Esquivel who made surfboards.
Wow.
And
Okay.
he made me a surfboard when I was about 14. And
Okay.
he kind of showed me how to make surfboards also. So I actually was part of the process, so that was cool. It's a good question.
Okay.
I know there was a brewer that was being kicked around
Okay.
between friends, and
Wow.
yeah, it was an early shortboard. It was kind of
Okay.
a funky looking shortboard, like a transition shortboard.
Right. They didn't know what they were doing then.
Yeah, but Dick Brewer was, he was definitely
The man.
He was definitely at the forefront, but it was kind of a weird looking combination board,
Okay. Where'd you grow up at?
Northeast Los Angeles, kind of a working class area. Born in Glassell Park. I lived in Eagle Rock, Glassell Park, Highland Park, Mount Washington. These are all the little sort of boroughs of this area. There was a really strong surf culture, skateboard culture because of the asphalt hills and everything that I mentioned. I had an aunt that had a house in Newport Beach, so we
Okay.
had that connection. And
So that was your exposure, kind of your first exposure to the ocean?
I mean,
or what?
it was not my first, but it was, we had it Santa Monica.
Yeah.
The first exposure was Santa Monica, and we had something when we were very young. They instituted something called the Beach Bus, and it picked us up in Northeast LA on Figueroa Street near Colorado Boulevard. And
Okay.
for 25 cents, it made like 5 stops, maybe 8 stops, all the way to Santa Monica. And then it picked you up at 5:30, and you better not miss because
Oh, shit.
there was only one pickup and one. And we would do that, and it was great because Santa Monica, you rented the mats, the blow-up mats.
Okay.
And we were
This
told,
early days.
oh, yeah. We're talking early 70s, at that point.
Yeah.
But we
That's
were little
awesome.
kids. It was amazing. No parent would ever let their 11-year-old
Not today.
kid do that today.
Not today.
But it was a big deal, man. And it was just got the stoke going. And then we started buying surfboards and belly boards. Oh, to answer your question, I just remember my first surfboard was a fiberglass belly board, believe it or not. And
All right.
like a Pipo. But anyway, our parents started dropping us off at Will Rogers. So that's where we learned to surf, was Will Rogers.
All right.
The first tower there at the jetty, the first jetty. We learned to surf there. And then we graduated. We graduated by moving north. It went to Sunset Beach. Then we went further north, Topanga a little bit. Then at Malibu. Then we ended up, we had older friends that had cars. And then it ended up County Line, all those spots up there,
Leo Carrillo and all those kind of
Leo Carrillo. What was that left? Oh man,
Zeros.
Zeros. Yeah,
Yeah.
Zeros was. I'm a goofy foot, so
Yeah. Me too.
any left was good to go. And then we started sneaking into Point Magoo. Then I went to UC Santa Barbara, surfing. That whole region.
Right.
The whole Santa Barbara region. So, yeah.
So coming from an urban environment, kind of inland, how different was the being on the beach, and how different were the people that lived near the beach versus you guys?
Well, we grew up with the Avenues gang in Highland Park. So this is a very violent Mexican gang, that, it was surfers. against the cholos, you know what I mean, growing up. I mean, and we finally ended up there was kind of a truce there in the later 70s. So we would go to places and then the locals would try to roll up on us, and we just thought that was funny, you know what I mean? It was
Yeah, coming from where you're from.
coming from where we were from, it was like, no, you don't know. You don't know.
Yeah.
I remember I was at C Street once. We got out and we would go really early because we'd party all night and just jump in the car at 2:00 in the morning sometimes and just head up to like C Street and then camp, just sleep in our car and then go out at sunrise. I remember a truckload of locals came, and I already had the fire made, on the bluff. This was in the old days, where
Right.
it was just like, it was wild.
Kind of a
out there.
free-for-all, free-spirited kind of.
Oh yeah, it was just
era.
a dirt lot. You just
Right.
drove in and just parked.
Yeah.
Some local guy comes up to me, and I'm just warming up, and I had already surfed out, and it was like 6 a.m, and this guy's like, "Yeah, man, like we don't want you going out there, and I'm like, "Dude, we've already been out, so you got to start a little fucking earlier, okay?" And he's like looking at me, and I was he was standing on the edge of the bluff on the other side of my fire. One kick to the chest, he would have flown like 15 feet onto his head. And so I was eyeballing him in that regard, like, okay, am I going to have to do this? But I handled it, and they just took off. It was like, that didn't worry us. That didn't scare us. That didn't bother us at all. You know what I mean? But we respected people. We weren't assholes. I think our greatest strength was we showed up so early. We were out before the sun came up.
Cold.
Oh, it was cold, and that's just how we did it. I don't know. And we were just done before anybody got started, and we got our waves, got out. I remember doing that a lot,
What allured you to want to surf? Watching other guys surf, skateboarding lead into it? Like what motivated you to even want to try?
Well, I mean, I thought about that a lot, going back to the blow up mats, in Santa Monica, and renting those things, just feeling that feeling of speed and gliding, that got into our consciousness, I think, right? Being a skateboarder already, gliding down the sidewalk as much as you can on a clay wheel, which is not much. I mean, that's rough and hazardous, And then being at Newport was very inspiring. We were poor, man, so like being at Newport, you see these rich people, you think they're rich people, they're like good looking women and all the blonde guys, they got all the good stuff. And like, I'm there on a fluke, like I happen to have an aunt with a house at 41st Street. And the only reason I'm there is that, I'd wax their boat or mow their lawn or whatever, and where they lived here. And she'd give me the keys. So I'd take my friends down there, and we'd have these like surf party weekends or something,
Nice.
Yeah, it was great. And we loved it. It was, we were already surfers. We weren't kooks. We knew what to do, and we knew how to surf, and we knew how to skateboard. And I think we handled ourselves well. And we would go down the boardwalk to the pier, and it was just this nonstop party at Newport, on the ocean front, like just house after house of people and everybody having a good time. And I was stoked to end up at Hannafin Surfboards. That was a iconic surf shop. You don't hear much about it. I mean, you don't hear anything about it, but it was the center of the world, man. You know what I mean? Pat Hannafin was a great dude. I was there when they first brought the Cadillac wheels in. The guy who invented them came in with a cardboard box, as I recall, and the guy left, and Hannafin is like, "Hey, kid, come over here." And I walk over there, and he hands me one of these Cadillac wheels. He says, "You got to get your mom to buy you these. These are the next thing, man." I look at it, it's gold, and it's just like I entered a whole new world, man. It was
Sweet.
like a portal. I can't even overstate the feeling it created in my mind of like future, and it was like the invention of fire. Like it was that radical. And They were $2 a wheel. I remember that. $8 was a lot of money. I mean, you're talking
Yeah.
about mowing a lawn for 25 cents. Somehow I got $8, bought the wheels, and the rest was history, man.
Was skating, did it work with surfing for you? If you couldn't surf, you'd skate, or you couldn't skate, you wouldn't surfing, kind of?
Yeah, it was like that. It was like that. I think surfing is the apex out of snowboarding and skateboarding. Surfing, you can't compete with the feeling of surfing, the whole thing, At the same time, when you live near downtown Los Angeles, basically, you got to deal with that. Skateboarding and urethane wheels was a close second. Okay,
Right.
Snowboarding, I would say, was a close third, once
Okay.
that came, but that was later. Skiing wasn't as important to me. Once I started snowboarding, I stopped skiing and never put skis on again. But the skateboarding thing was a very urban thing. It was a very, it was just right for the times, and right for our neighborhood because we had a lot of resources and we already had the talent from skateboarding as kids and also surfing. So we surfed before we skateboarded in a way, on a serious level. You know what I mean? And by the time 1975 rolled around and the droughts and the emptying of the pools, we were set to go, and we skated at a high level, and we were stoked because occasionally, like guys like Stacy Peralta and Shogo Kubo would show up at our local spot.
Wow.
A big not a big ditch, actually kind of a small but very high performance concrete ditch near Mount Washington Cypress Park. They would show up and we would hold our own, no problem. We had good times,
Were you guys friendly towards those guys?
Oh yeah. We respected them completely. We knew they were the apex predators of the time.
You knew who they were in advance
Yeah.
before
yeah.
meeting them? Okay.
Yeah, because
Mags or whatever?
Yeah, they were the guys that commanded the media. They had that angle, and they were the best guys. There was no question about it. But in our ditch, we kept up, more than kept up, to be honest.
Held your own.
For sure. Yeah, and I think they respected us. I know they respected us because one of my friend who was probably one of the better skaters, like in that place, he and Stacy Peralta kind of became friends. They would kind of pal around, and I remember meeting them over at the first Bones Brigade event at Marina Skate Park.
Wow.
And Elliot was my friend who said, "Hey, Stacy invited me to go, and you can come." And I was already kind of getting out of skateboarding by the time I went to art school in '78. I think that event might have been '79 or '80. I don't know, maybe '81. I don't know. I think it was earlier though. Could look that up. But I remember seeing those young guys and knowing, I'm done. I'm done keeping up as a skateboarder for sure. And I'll never do that, what they're doing.
Back to the urban environment. How were you treated at home? I know you said the Chicano gangs were kind of against the surfer gangs. Was it like literally like fighting for your life, or was it more like just talking shit kind of thing?
No, you fought. You fought. They didn't like you. They didn't like you being in their area. I mean,
But it was your area too.
Yeah, that didn't matter. It didn't matter to them. I remember there was a place nearby my house. It had a really nice asphalt bank. My girlfriend was a Puerto Rican girl whose brother was in a gang. Okay, so and he didn't like me at the beginning. Okay, and they didn't like the fact I had a dark-skinned, gang-related girlfriend. Okay, so that was sort of like that was a problem. So they had a problem because she loved me and all that. So they would get me on the side, and they would hassle me in all different ways, and we would get in all kinds of problems with the gangs. Like I remember I didn't know that the leader of the Northeast LA Avenues lived on Avenue 49. Okay. And I remember skateboarding there once with my cousin, poor guy. He wasn't used to this stuff. We skated for a while. We skateboarded down Avenue 49 to the liquor store, and there's Sugar Bear. He was the leader of the gang, and he was already after me. And he's leaning against a lowrider with like 4 guys. They saw me, and it was on, man. And out comes a huge chain. The guy's running at me, swinging this chain. I jump off my board, hold my board up. He swings and misses. We get past them, and they get into the car. They're chasing us in the lowrider. We ran through yards. We walked home as the crow flies through people's yards.
Okay.
So they couldn't find us on the streets.
I get it. Yeah, I get it. That's
After
crazy.
that, it was seriously on. And stressful on, like
Yeah.
chasing you around like in cars. It was dangerous, man. It seriously was. And finally I saw him at school once. I rode my bike. I was riding my bike to school. And I was there at like 7:00 in the morning. It was during the height of this tension with this guy who ran this gang. And I was walking down the hallway, and I come to the corner, you got the lockers and the hallway, and then it turns. And I turn the corner, and he's walking the other way.
Mm.
And it's just me and him.
Mm.
And we stood there looking at each other. And I told him right there, I said, dude, here's the deal, man. If you catch up to me, you better fucking kill me. Because if you don't, I'm going to kill you. He knew I was fucking real because I knew how to fight. Okay. I grew up fighting. He goes, no, man. Like, we got to talk about this, At that moment, he proposed, look, let's be brothers, man. Like, we don't have to do this. And I'm like, okay, I'm cool. Yeah, there was another incident that happened with him that caused him to be so fucking mad at me. And I have to say this, is that me and a crazy friend of mine were leaving the high school, and Sugar Bear and 3 gang members rolled up on the 2 of us. And he starts in on me,
Mm-hmm.
You don't skateboard on my street. This was after that happened. That incident. I'd say I was crazy, but I could also say I am crazy. Okay. I'm loco. I'm California loco.
Right.
But he's thumping on my chest, telling me what to do and not to do. And this is where it all got bad. I grabbed his finger and I bent his finger back and I put him on his knees. And I said, you don't fucking tell me where to fucking skateboard. I fucking skateboard where I want to skateboard. You fucking understand me? And his friends didn't jump in. And I let them up and they all ran. And I knew at that point I was in big trouble.
Right. You started something there. They started it, but
that started 3 months of that hell that ended at that school.
Okay.
Where we came together. After that, man, I got in a fight with this big football player, huge guy. And I was in the park and he was, it's not easy to fight a guy like so much bigger than you. And he ended up on top of me and he's pinning my arms. Like I'm spitting in this guy's face and anything to get this guy. Yeah. And all of a sudden I see this flash of like basically Pendleton colors and boom. And it was Sugar Bear and his gang, a couple of gang members. They fucking knocked this guy off of me. And I ended up winning that fight because of these guys. So at that point, that was the truce moment. And, Sugar Bear ended up in prison for murder. He went into a party. Shit. Yeah, because they, angel dust and all that stuff started coming in. And the cholos were mainly peddling it and using it. And he went into a party and shot up this party, I think he killed 2 people.
Oh, shit.
And he went to prison. Yeah, he's probably still there.
How did you stay out of this trouble? It seems like the mentality of that area at the time was join a gang or die.
Well, yeah, a white guy was not going to join their gang. Even though I'm half Mexican, To be
Okay.
honest with you, my mom's from Mexico. So that wasn't going to happen, and I didn't want it to happen anyway. I mean,
Okay.
we had the surfer mentality. We were
All right.
you got to
Fair
be
enough.
you got to be kind of
Yeah.
crazy and wild to be a surfer skater. I mean, you're putting your body at risk all the time. And
Yeah.
bad things happen. Plus the drug world that was going on, and so it wasn't any ride through the park for us either.
Right.
But we lived in the gang area. It wasn't like they were somewhere else. They drove our streets. We walked their streets, and so
They're your neighbors.
they were our neighbors,
Yeah.
but not friendly neighbors. They were, and like I lived right where Cypress Park, Highland Park, Mount Washington all came together. The Cypress Park avenues were the craziest ones. They were the ones that brought a new meaning to violence and killing and murder. And they did things that were just unspeakable. Those guys were the most radical guys. And, anyway, I could tell you other stories, but basically, you just had to navigate it, man. And like when you're in a car, if they see you and they want to chase you, you get into like car chases and you have all your trick places to go and alleys.
The neighborhoods where to go and where not to go.
Yeah, but they do too.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, 100%. Does all this stuff in your brain go into your art? Does that make sense, that question?
It makes total sense.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been preaching that word from the beginning that is art is life. Art is a portal to a universe that's created by the artist. From a very young age as an artist, it went from being this crazy kind of lifestyle, as we've just talked, to being, sort of a nostalgic thing. Like I would kind of go like, wow, that's really important. Like that whole neighborhood dynamic was really important. And it was instilled in me. And, somehow the color, the aggression, the urgency, the multiculturalism, car culture, because the Cholos had car culture, the surfers had hot rod culture, It kind of merged, where we were doing things they were doing, and they were maybe doing some things we were doing. Both cultures had the Pendletons, the flannels as part of their identity, hush puppies. Okay. You know what I mean? It was very funny how we were kind of like two sides of a coin in a way. And it was very different. But like I say, in the late 70s, for some reason, it kind of, the violent part and the problem part kind of clicked off, and there seemed to be a truce. Maybe because we were buying drugs from them. We became, customers.
Right.
Like I got a painting. There's one of my paintings, but you kind of see, right? Like you see that LA symbol?
Yes.
So that's my logo but it's my version of Los Angeles, but the arrow pointing up is north and the arrow pointing to the right is east. So it's north, my logo
Northeast.
for Northeast LA. So,
there you go.
And then, you got various iconography in there, Jay Adams and different things, but that's an example of how life enters art, in terms of color. But I went to art school too, so I studied contemporary art movements, and I had to like really grasp like all these things that went beyond, street art and street living and stuff, and it got intellectual. So you contend with all these things for years, and then if it's really important to you and you stay with it, it comes out in your art. So that's the answer to your question. Yes, absolutely.
Before you get the formal training, you said you've kind of always, since elementary school, you had a good art teacher. You had a good art teacher through all those years in high school. Did your art change through the years? Were you a tagger? I'm what kind of artist were you as a young man compared to today?
I mean, I wasn't really a tagger, but I did a bit of spray painting, like
Little
on
street art.
walls. Yeah, but it wasn't a thing. My guy in the Locos, Chaz Bojorquez, he was turning it into an art form. And I knew of him since I was a kid because we grew up in kind of the same region of Northeast LA. So
Okay.
we would bike through the river systems and see all this crazy graffiti, the avenues. But Chaz also was doing stuff that has become, iconic, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
But we saw it kind of in real time, right? Skaters weren't professing to be street artists back then. I mean, I did draw on my boards, like I was more into drawing. It wasn't formal art that motivated me, like back in our day, it was like Big Daddy Roth, with the hot rods and the monsters driving them, Ed Big Daddy Roth. That was a big influence since the 60s. And because it was basically rebellious and just like crazy stuff, that appealed to kids, Mad Magazine was kind of rebellious and smart ass, without going
Totally.
overboard, and there was a lot of good pen and ink drawings in there, and to copy, you know what I mean. So you begin as an artist by copying things,
Kind of cartoonish stuff.
yeah, cartoonish stuff,
Yeah.
So that was a big deal. I kept a lot of that stuff, and essentially, to be honest with you, that's what I'm still doing.
Yeah. Okay.
It's just advanced beyond what I was doing when I was a kid.
Okay.
But I've got drawings from the 70s that are like, the truth is if I kept going on that path completely, it was very much in the realm of what's called pop surrealism. Guys like Robert Williams, well, mainly Robert Williams blew that genre up into, a world level art form. But I just kept going. I evolved my own style,
So talk about the California Locals at this point then. So this is a group of artists that I guess you helped form, right?
Yeah. I mean, basically you got Chaz Bojorquez. He's considered the godfather of West Coast graffiti.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. He's, very renowned guy. You got John Van Hammersveld, who's a renowned surfer. And
Right.
he's the guy who did the Endless Summer poster.
Yep.
Jimmy Z logos, Bing surfboards from the early 60s. He did the Clark Foam logo.
Oh, wow, I did not know that. I know who he is, or I know his name.
Yeah.
And I know the Endless Summer poster. Of course,
Yeah.
the world knows that poster.
Right.
But he's done a lot of work. And you made a movie about him, but we can get into that.
Yeah.
Back in. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's Norton Wisdom. He's a tremendous surfer, skier, performance artist. I met him in the punk rock scene in the early 80s, believe it or not. Gary Wong is sort of, he kind of holds the fort on the more ethereal parts of art that we all aspire to in terms of contemporary art history, abstract expressionism, and formal practice. Wong is a very formal artist, I would say, with roots in complete crazy subculture too. He was good friends with Rick Griffin and a lot of wild people, and in the hippie world, and he's a whole story unto himself. So we're just this group. We're friends. I had an art show in Beverly Hills back in 2011. I've been talking about this kind of loco thing, which is basically multicultural Los Angeles fusion artwork, lowbrow, highbrow mashup. So it wasn't street art for me. It wasn't formal art. It was a combination, kind of coming out of the ethos of Northeast LA, which, funny enough, you're the first person that's ever dug into the lifestyle of living in that area.
Okay.
That we've talked about it is an insight into like where I'm coming from as an artist, where you're combining low art and high art, I've been preaching this word for my entire art career. to blank stares. Like I would talk to formally trained artists, and I could talk art history. I know art history very well.
Right. Okay,
And,
good.
we're talking about formal art history and la, la, la. And then it turns around to like, so what influenced you, Dave? And I'd get into the conversation about skateboarding and surf culture. Right. And then the blank stare comes like, you didn't learn that in art school, right? I never had any support with that argument. But I had a museum show in 2002 where I was able to really talk about it. They made a catalog where I'm talking about it. And the Locos didn't start until 2011. So that's a full decade.
Yeah.
I'm going along doing my thing pretty much alone. I didn't really have a group of people with like-minded ideas. I just was kind of doing my own thing mostly, but telling the story, and refining my story, because you don't wake up one day knowing what you're talking about. The one thing I like about art is that it's a very slowly evolving process. It's, as you grow as an artist, it's just a slow evolution. It's kind of like getting good as a surfer or something, but it's even slower. It's even slower and more, it has to do with your intellect and your observations of life, and so you get better as you live because you see more, you learn more. So anyway, by the time 2011 rolls around, I have this show in Beverly Hills, and it was an important show for me because I felt like I was really going to lay this conversation on the table. Like this is my opportunity to make this point. And it was right during the time of a very large citywide program called Pacific Standard Time. It was a very famous thing in the art world. And my point was Pacific Standard Time went from like maybe the 40s through 1980. My flag in the ground was I'm starting at 1980. That was just my personal
tail end of it.
F you, right? We start at 1980. So anyway, so that was kind of my personal rebellion. And then the gallerist wanted to extend the show, and he wanted me to give a talk about my treatises and arguments about all this stuff you and I are talking about.
Okay.
And I said, well, I could do a better job if I get some of my friends in, we do a panel discussion.
There you go.
He's like, okay, great. The Locos were all the first call guys. It's just like automatic. Hey, what do you think? You want to be part of it? Yes. You want to be part of it? Yes, 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 yes. And then we did a panel discussion, and that was the beginning because the filmmaker who made a film about me during that time, that film you might have seen, L.A. Aboriginal. Also, at the same time, the moderator, Mariana Pomones, they were all talking about giving us a name. And California Locos started getting kicked around. And we were kind of like, nah, come on, a name. Bands have names, but artists don't have names,
Okay.
But it stuck. It stuck. It's been my work ever since. It's all I care about is continuing to make that idea take root and grow. And it's the full evolution of my own art form. And I'm super proud of it.
No, it's awesome. I feel like most people in Southern California, say Santa Barbara South, can relate or understand maybe your art. I don't know why, but I just do feel that way.
That's so funny you say that. You're the only other person but me that I've ever heard say that. I'm not kidding you. I learned it at UC Santa Barbara.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So you but formally trained also.
Well,
but I'm not formally trained. I'm just some dude that walks into museums twice a year.
Yeah.
And looks at art, and sometimes I get it, and sometimes I don't. I don't have any training.
Yeah.
But my question is, how does Middle America, have you tried to show your art in Middle America, and how does it accepted?
I mean, usually it's coast to coast.
Yeah. And I feel like East Coast would catch it.
They get it. Yeah.
It's an urban setting also.
Yeah, we've been in Miami. We're invited to art
Miami too.
Right. We had a big show at Virginia Beach, which is kind of the center of East Coast surf culture.
But still, surf culture still a little bit more Southern California-ish
Yeah,
than
and they
Omaha.
look to California surf culture
Yeah.
on the East Coast, I
Yeah.
mean, we got bigger waves, we got, the people, are iconic people.
Yeah.
But the thing about Santa Barbara that's so hilarious, and like I say, I said this when I went to UC Santa Barbara in
Hmm.
'78, and you're the first person that's ever said it that I've ever heard, which is SoCal ends in Santa Barbara. No,
Yeah.
NoCal begins in Santa Barbara. And people would say to me, well, I mean, Santa Barbara's so close. And I said, yeah, but
Yeah.
you don't understand. You see Santa Barbara, you had these punk-minded SoCal rebels like me,
Hmm.
and they meet the guys with the Birkenstocks and
Yes.
you know what I mean? And,
Exactly.
eating granola. Okay.
Right.
So we're
Living in a
drinking
van.
whiskey,
Yeah.
in vans, and we're meeting with these guys eating granola. Anyway, I'm joking, but it started
Right.
in Santa Barbara. You're right, because
Yeah.
and NoCal usually doesn't like SoCal. That's the basic
Hmm.
predominant ideas. They think we're a bunch of crude, punk cave people.
Different cultures.
Different cultures.
Ish.
That's
Subcultures.
I don't know how it is now. I know this. The San Francisco Museum of Modern Art has our book in it,
Oh, wow.
California
Cool.
Locos, Renaissance and Rebellion, right on the shelf there of their movements section. So
Oh, okay.
it wasn't solicited by me. I didn't call them. They
Yeah.
they
That's
bought
awesome.
it. So they sell it. So I'm very proud of that.
Yeah. Do you think Middle America would understand in your art?
I think so. I think so. I think so, man. And I'll tell you why. One thing that just flashed into my mind. I met the singer for 311 once. We were talking. He was from Nebraska. They're from
Yeah, they're
Nebraska,
from Nebraska.
right? I was in bands from the punk scene, LA, okay,
Yeah.
79, 80, 80, all through the 80s. And I was in a band called The Dissidents. And they used to make these handmade magazines, zines, like,
Yep.
and they made their way to places like Nebraska. And this guy was telling me he remembered seeing the band in one of these zines.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he was like, those zines were the lifeblood. Those were what we saw the world through. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Black Flag and all this kind of saccharine trust. That was like our vision of where we had to go. And I thought that was incredible. Like, wow, because they made it huge. Eventually. So I would have to say my first response to your question was, that's a stretch, but I just thought of that story about this guy from 311. I think, yeah, because, people look to the West Coast, people look to SoCal for style, for innovation. What are they doing? It's an attractive thing. They
Yeah.
have it like it's Mecca or something. And
Okay.
they
Yeah.
don't have mountains. They got. I drove across the country. I remember staying in Kansas. I blew my motorhome up in a place called Phillipsburg, Kansas, which is kind of north central Kansas, and I stayed there for a week. It was fun in a way, but in a
Right.
way I was sitting there going, "Wow, all I can see is corn, man."
And how are you treated by the locals there?
Good,
Good. Yeah.
good, yeah. It was. Well, I happened to run into the guy who kind of ran the town. He was a local who had a trucking company. I blew the transmission in the middle of coming over the hill into town, and he happened to be there. And he's like,
Okay.
he introduced himself. Hey, let me help you, and so
That's cool.
knowing this guy, he kind of ran the town. You know what I mean? We were
All
there
right.
for like a week. Me and my wife
Okay.
and my youngest daughter.
So I've been to a lot of different museums. My wife loves to go.
Yeah.
Would you call this modern art? Like, I don't even know. Like, or is urban art? Like, if you local, California local, it makes sense. The name for how the pieces
Yeah.
look.
Okay. So if you look at art history, you have
I don't
Yeah.
get it. Okay.
well,
I don't
yeah,
know it.
yeah,
It's
basic
all over my
things like
head.
the mid-century. You have what they call
Yes.
modern.
Things I hear.
right?
Okay.
And then around 1960, it started to break down into, like pop art.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So there were important transitions, where abstract painting, I don't want to get too technical, but like
Yeah.
abstract painting was more of a existential, psychological, gestural thing where, your mind wasn't really connected to your hand, and it was a
Mm-hmm.
pure, it was in the stroke of the hand. And I believe in that in a lot of ways. But
Okay.
in around 1960, it changed into from being an unplanned event to a planned event. So pop
Mm.
art, Andy Warhol and these guys started to think about what they were going to do and they planned the piece. It's pretty much been that way ever since. So that's where what they call postmodernism. Okay.
Okay.
Then
Got
they start throwing around words like conceptualism and contemporary. Contemporary is a way to just be in the now. It's a
Okay.
word you can use to just be current.
Okay.
It's contemporary art. Okay, fine. I call it post-contemporary.
There
So
you
it's
go.
like
Okay.
after contemporary, Now, what does that mean? I don't know. I mean, it could be anything. It could be
Yeah.
anything. John Van Hammersveld's wife is a curator, and she calls her company Post Future. At this point in time, it's not a formalized thing. It's just everything blows up everything else and then blows up that. And the only constant is change at this point. It's kind of like the Big Bang Theory. In 1960, this super tightly constructed and held philosophy forwarded mainly by an intellectual in New York named Clement Greenberg, and it was kind of a conspiracy with all the galleries and museums, and this is called abstract expressionism. Okay, but it got broken like any art movement is going to get broken by the rebels. It gets changed, and it finally blew up there in the 50s. It's like the Big Bang Theory. It blows
Yeah.
up, and it just keeps
Expanding?
expanding and
Yeah.
growing and breaking and growing and breaking and morphing and turns into solar systems. And
Mhm.
that's what art is today. And the way I see it, there is no thing. The thing is figuring out what you're doing. And that's
Okay.
a big problem. A lot of people have trouble with that.
From an artist perspective, do you give a shit? Are you trying to reach a certain audience? Or do you just do it for the love?
Yeah, I don't give a shit. I don't
Okay.
care about making my living from it. I'm completely now divorced of the need to make money from my art. So I can do anything I
That's
want
freeing.
now. It's free.
Yeah.
Advantages and disadvantages. The advantage
Okay.
being I'm free. I can rehearse my band. I can make film. I can make furniture. I can paint. I can do art shows. I can do a lot of things. I can make a book like I did, merch, whatever, like
Movies.
movies. That's a very difficult art form, I can tell you, but it's a rewarding one that I've participated in. But I also know what I'm doing as a painter, which was the main focus of my whole life, was to understand and to get to a point where I could say to myself, forgetting everybody else, okay, you're a good painter now. And I know how to speak as a painter now. And that's, but as far as like where I fit in, I don't give a shit.
Okay.
I know I can paint things that are meaningful, that communicate, and that could, as I say, hold up on the wall next to anybody.
A question I had for you, going back to surfing now. You knew a guy that surfed because what he was wearing. He was wearing probably one of these brands in the 80s and 90s. And they had their own art pieces. Branded art, I would guess you would call it maybe. Did that ruin or did that help the surf art culture? Does that make sense, the question?
Yeah. I mean, let's see. As I roll back the tape, for me, the 60s and 70s, the earliest I can remember of any brand, and it was nothing like what you're talking about, but it was just sort of the early beginning, that I remember was a brand called Hang 10.
Of course.
It was the 2
Famous.
feet. Right?
2 feet. Yeah.
The 2 feet.
Right.
Yeah. They actually, funny enough, were in South Pasadena. I found out later.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. They were
And
huge. They were it.
They were it. They were kind of
Yeah.
it. And they just had the 2 little feet. That was it,
Yeah.
And that was cool. But underneath that, and a strong sort of thread was surf shops had their brand, had their logos. So like for example, Hannafin surfboards had the bitchinest logo of all. So, and they were Newport Beach, man. And he had long sleeve, he had short sleeve, like different colors. I mean, Hannafin surfboards were I thought by far the most contemporary, hip looking thing. And I could tell you it was like a badge of honor to wear a Hannafin shirt. Okay. So you had that going on. But nobody had really taken over the whole world. Oh, and then also you had like J.C. Penney, the chain store.
Of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they had a certain T-shirt that surfers knew about. It was called the Towncraft. It was just their white T-shirt.
Yeah.
It had a certain weight, very much like the one I'm wearing. And in fact, this shirt that I'm wearing that has the Locos logo
Yeah.
is a collab with a company called Worn Free, a rock and roll company in London. Okay. And we decided we wanted to do a collab together. And I told them, I said, look, and they sent me samples, and some of them are thin and kind of European style. And I said, look, I need what I remember of the J.C. Penney Towncraft. That was a heavy cotton, and the surfers, all the surfers wore it. It was like, and he spent about a month, and he said, I think I found the blank, and it was a free trade from Belgium, organic cotton. He sent me the blanket. It was perfect, man. It was like, so anyway, but then things started happening, with, the early stuff, like you say, Quicksilver, Jimmy Z, I remember he was selling, his shorts. I think he was making them just out of the trunk of his car at Malibu. That's how he got started. He made them himself. I never bought one, but later became friends with Jim Ganser, Jimmy Z. He's a great guy, and he's a loco, complete loco. And he and John were friends. John did all of his art marketing.
Wow. Yeah, that was sick.
Yeah.
I can vision him in my head still today.
Yeah,
as a young kid looking at the mags.
Yeah, so that's a photograph Ganser put together that ended up his logo, Jimmy Z logo.
That was the big one. That was the big picture.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
John did it. So, I think brands were very intrinsic to surfers and skateboarders. It gave you an identity, something to cling on to, something to be cool with. I think where it kind of got screwed up is all this private equity, like comes in, it goes corporate. You know what I mean? And these
non-surfers,
big corporate. It's like the dark side of capitalism takes over, where this cool cat like Jim Ganser starts Jimmy Z, turns it into this massive company. They come in with the money, buy all the partners out, and then what? Yep. Now they got to make the shirts thinner, cheaper, used cheaper overseas, and then it turns into that.
Right.
That's not cool. Then
it takes the art away.
Takes the soul away, right? And
soul. There you go. Not art, it's soul.
And basically, like we've seen kind of an evolution at the end of COVID a couple of years ago when the economy collapsed. I think it was 2022. Then that's when the last, when the big corps came in and bought the last, Hurley and these companies, and kind of changed the entire dynamic of action sports branding. But the good news is, and I remember saying it because the Locos have been in branding. We made merch, skateboarding, hoodies, skateboards, did amazing collabs with great artists and stuff, and didn't do well financially. We have a new thing we're going to be doing, that's coming out soon. And I think we're going to do really well because we're keeping it much more simple. But the
Okay.
point is that the resurrection of action sports and surf culture branding, I think we're seeing it now. And, now that the corporations took the whole landscape, nobody's really associated with it, like from the heart. Now
Right.
it's time for the boutique brands to come out again. And you're going to see a lot of stuff from small. It's going back to the roots, I think. And I think it's going to be very cool again. Right?
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Your art, but a lot of the surf art is getting displayed right now in Oceanside, right?
It's not surf art, it's Locos art. Yeah. It's not necessarily surf. We're not surf artists. I mean, John could be legitimately called one. But it's basically our urban brand of, loco stuff placed in the California Surf Museum. And it's our connections to surf are known, but our art is different than surf art. And I think that's what they like about it,
I'm not going to disagree with you because you're the expert, but I feel like they overlap because of Southern California.
For sure. No, I don't disagree at all.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
No, you got hot rod elements. No, there's a big overlap. That's what they like about it. I think we kind of expanded the idea because they could see like we're tied to like street art, hot rod art, gang art, modern art. We got kind of a lot of stuff smashed into what we do, which makes us who we are as a group. And I think the surf community, sees that and appreciates it, and we definitely appreciate them.
Right on. So everyone go out to California Surf Museum in Oceanside. Do you have any more big shows coming up, you personally, or with the California Locos?
Yeah, well, we have we're gonna have a brand launch of some products coming up. It's kind of secret right now, but I'll give you a hint. Really high quality hats.
Nice. Okay.
It's the first time I've said that outside of our group. We are planning a show, hopefully 2026. And we do a lot of museum stuff, to be honest with you. Like we all get invited.
That's perfect. I love that.
Yeah, isn't that cool? We like it.
Yeah.
We kind of feel like we're big shots, when they do that.
You are big shots.
Well, I don't know.
I saw the pictures of all the people that go to these shows. You guys are at the museums.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah. We're doing our thing, but, we do like the museum environment because it's just a context that people stop and really watch. It's not just getting drunk and leaving. It's like,
let me ask you.
Yeah.
Can a guy that doesn't know art, Southern California dude, roll in and have a good time and not feel out of place walking into one of your museum shows?
That's what makes our museum shows or any show what it is, because what we've learned about California Locos art as a group is that what people realize is that the art is about them, not us. So it's not about importance.
I like that.
It's about the fact that they're basically looking into mirrors, and they appreciate that because they feel the respect we have for what we're doing, and it reflects back on them, and it's like a self-respect. So our shows are known to be rowdy, sort of soulful gatherings of locos. Basically, we're all locos. It's not just the five of us. It's we represent a bigger ideal, and the people that you could say are our fans know that we respect them and that we're all part of the same group, and that they feel like they're locos.
So I'm guessing an everyday guy, they're not going to get the snobbiness of intimidation of walking into another art exhibit. Yeah. I always felt intimidated going to an exhibit for opening night or something.
Yeah, it's different with the locos for sure. They know they're coming. It's like we're all part of the same gang. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They may be intimidated by the fact that like they're standing in front of a John Van Hammersveld work or talking to him or Chaz or someone.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I intimidate anybody, but I know that people do get a little intimidated. Like, because your reputation precedes, and they get a little nervous sometimes. But so they might have that feeling, but there's no reason to, like I said, we're just the reps for what we do. They're in the group. So like, there's no reason to be intimidated. It's their art. It's the art for the people. That's the concept.
Love it. All right, everybody. Dave, Tourje, and Mike from the QuiverCast are out of here. Thanks, Dave, for coming on the show.
Thank you, buddy. Peace.
You go left, I go right. Man, this wave is out of sight. Going surfing, going surfing, going surfing with friends. Ride this wave to the shore. Paddle out, I'm gonna catch 10 more. Going surfing, going surfing, going surfing with friends. I don't care if it's wrong or right. I'm gonna do it all day, I'm gonna do it all night. I'm going surfing, going surfing, going surfing with friends. On my way, it's a beautiful day. I'm going surfing, I'm going surfing.